Before we continue, we'd like to give a shout out to our friends at the New Brunswick Aviation Museum. Are you passionate about aviation and preserving Canada's rich military and civilian aviation history? Look no further than the New Brunswick Aviation Museum, or simply known as the NBAM, one of the newest and most exciting museum projects in the country. Located in the heart of New Brunswick, the NBAM is dedicated to honoring the men and women who served in Canada's #1 Air Division. As a provincially incorporated not-for-profit organization and a registered charity with the Canadian Revenue Agency, the NBAM relies solely on donations to bring this project to life. The New Brunswick Aviation Museum will be a premier destination for aviation enthusiasts, historians, and anyone interested in exploring the fascinating story of flight in Canada. But in order to make it a reality, they need your support. So how can you help? It's very easy. Simply visit the donation page at canadahelps.org or simply click the link in our episode description to make a secure donation online. Every contribution, big or small, will bring them closer to achieving their goal of creating a world-class aviation museum that New Brunswickers can be proud of. Together, we can make this vision a reality and preserve the rich aviation history of our province for generations to come. Donate today and be a part of this exciting journey. The Corcoran Entertainment Show is brought to you by Podmatch, the ultimate platform designed to connect podcast hosts with prospective guests effortlessly. Are you a podcaster looking to elevate your show to new heights? Or perhaps you're a guest hoping to share your story with a broader audience. Whatever your podcasting goals are, we have the perfect solution for you. Podmatch simplifies the entire process of discovering guests for your show or finding podcasts to feature your expertise. Now imagine a platform where you can easily match with like-minded creators tailored specifically to your niche. With Podmatch, you can effortlessly network with influencers and thought leaders, all while staying true to your podcast vision. There are a multitude of ways that Podmatch can help you grow your brand. You can be part of a thriving community of podcasters and potential guests. Engage, collaborate, and grow together. If you're ready to experience these fantastic benefits for yourself, we invite you to join Podmatch today. Head over to www.joinpodmatch.com/Corcoran Entertainment and sign up right now for only $6 a month. That's right, you heard me right, $6 a month. Join the Podmatch family today and watch your podcast soar to new altitudes. Thank you for tuning into the Corcoran Entertainment Show, and happy podcasting. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the Corcoran Entertainment Show. I'm your host, Frankie Corcoran. We're here on a Thursday once again. As you guys know, I don't normally do these episodes on Thursdays, but why not? Let's do it today. I had a great conversation with an amazing writer, rock and roll enthusiast, Beth Pellino-Dudzic. Absolutely amazing conversation. She's the author of the Perfection Saga. It's a 6-book series. Part 3 is coming out in early 2025. And a wonderful conversation just about the ins and outs of publishing, trusting the right people, or as you guys can tell by the episode title, Trust the Right People. Awesome chat I had with her. And originally it was just going to be a Tuesday episode, but I had such a fun time chatting with Beth. I said, let's just do this one on Thursday. Just the interview, no solo segments or anything like that. That will be back on Tuesday. So until then, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast today. All right, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Corcoran Entertainment Show. I am your host, Frankie Corcoran, and today I am joined by someone who I would describe as a rock and roll enthusiast, and I think she would as well, too. She is also the author of the Perfection Saga, which the 3rd book is slated to be released in 2025. Beth Pellino-Dudzic. Beth, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you.
I was really, I kind of kept thinking about what you told me, that you were self-editing, which is really, really cool. your experience in writing and stuff like that, sending it off to the editors, you kind of know the ins and outs. Do you recommend self-editing to people, or do you always encourage people to just get an editor, or how do you advise people in that regard?
Well, if you want a polished book, you do need a very good editor. Um, and I'm self-editing because I know that that manuscript's going to go to my editor. And to try to cut her costs down a little bit, to be honest. I know the things that they're looking for because all books have a standard, and I don't know if people know this, but there's a standard in the way your book is formatted. So not only do you need an editor, you need, and then it goes to the proofreader who keeps you on your timeline and makes, notes about the characters because when you write fiction, sometimes we make up names because everything has to be made up. And you're like, did I use that name? And what, like, why is that familiar? She keeps you on track. Um, as far as self-editing, I know the little tricks that, and I don't know if people know this, when you write a book, you don't put 12 o'clock noon. You have to write out um, dates and time and money. There's a limit where you can, where it doesn't make sense, you just put it in. And even if you use the word okay, you have to spell that out. So those are the little tricks that I've learned. And so when I went back to my manuscript, I looked at it and I said, okay. And then I noticed that there were some redundancies. Like I said something the page before, and it's like, well, I don't need to say that again because that's what they look for. So before you send it to your editor, just look through it. And then, and because I'm so far ahead in this series now, um, book 5 and 6 are going to kind of run into each other. And at some point, I'm going to sit with my editor and say, where are we making the cliffhanger? Because I have 190,000 words, which is 2 books, really. Um, and so I know what's going to happen in the future. And then I go back to book 3 and I'm like, okay, let me take this out because I know further on in the series, this is not going to make sense. So that's a good thing about self-editing. The whole self-publishing world is a very, and I will say this, people, it's dangerous if you don't do your homework because there's a lot of frauds out there. And I actually spoke to 2 frauds. And what I mean by fraud is they'll have this package deal and they'll say, yep, we're going to do your book and we're going to do this, and it's $15,000. And then your book sits on Amazon and they don't do marketing, they don't do anything. Um, so you need to really investigate, which is what I did. And there's a site called the Alliance of Self-Publishers, and it's quite an extensive list. But what they do is they greenlight the people who are good, and then there's yellow lit, and then there's red. And 2 of the red people were the ones who got in touch with me. And I went through the greenlit people, and I found my publishing consultant. And what that means is she helps me navigate certain things. And she introduced me, I interviewed 3 editors. And the editor I chose happened to be a woman. And she got my book right away. Like she got the manuscript. She goes, I love where you're going. This is great. So I was lucky for that. And then I got hooked up with an artist who she must have done 1,000 book covers. And when I told her it was a series, she just, her eyes lit up. And she does my covers, my book layout. even my website. And I have a marketing person. So all together, and three of those ladies have worked together, that it's a team collaboration. And I said, we're going to do all six books together. If you don't, if you don't investigate, you will probably get ripped off. And marketing, right now, my editor's waiting for the manuscript, my publishing consultant's waiting for it. The person I'm working with tirelessly is my marketing person because we're still marketing books one and book two. So that's what I would say to people. As you get deeper, the more books you write, the more you learn. And so that's why self-editing is kind of the right thing to do for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also something, it's a good learning curve to have if you can avoid it. Absolutely. Take all the advice that you can from people. Anyone listening who's like a young writer or anything like that. And I mean, I even plan to publish some books at some point in the future. I have lots of
Mhm.
ideas. I still plan on it. I don't know when or what's going to happen, but that's great advice too, to just really, really know what you're getting involved with. If you sign a contract with somebody, know what you're getting yourself into. That's a huge, huge thing. And I mean that really applies to anything you do. Contracts apply
Yes.
to like any type of work that you do. So it's really, really important to kind of know what you're getting involved in before you go out and get robbed. Or
Yeah.
maybe not get robbed, but get screwed over, I guess is
Yeah.
the right word I'm looking for.
So here's the thing about the way I did my books is I own everything. And these people look at it like I'm subcontracting them, right? And uh, the only contract I sign is I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars. Um, I know what my publishing consultant's going to charge. I know what my editor is, and the breakdown and the installments, that kind of thing. But all the work belongs to me. And my publishing consultant said the first thing you need to do is create your own LLC, which I did. So everything that's in the books belongs to me, even the artwork. Of course, I give my artist, kudos, and it's her work, but I own everything. So I've never signed a contract, and I was looking at a publishing company in Wales actually, and I liked them a lot, and it came down to them being in Wales or going through the self-publishing thing where I was going to contract out. And the publishing company wants a piece of the pie. So I I went the other route because I own everything. I pay them for one, okay, this is what it's going to cost me to put book three out. But I own everything. And that is the I don't know, you can have the jankiest publishing company, but if they own 10% of your book, you're not getting a lot out of it because the margins are very, once it's on Amazon, you pay Amazon because it's print as you go, right? So if I need 10 books, boom, 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 they print it. So Amazon charges you for that. So when you get the royalties, I mean, you do get, I would say, one third of the royalties, but that's the better way to go. If you go with a publishing company, they're going to take a piece of it.
There's so many different angles to it where people will argue like, oh, well, they have to make money too. And yes, people do have to make money, but at the end of the day, you don't screw people over. Like that's really what it comes down to in that way. It's, I get it, you're doing your thing, you're trying to make a go at this, but you can't screw people over. I mean, like it's and that's something you can't really predict or stop because
right.
people are just going to do what they want to do. Like, have you ever dealt with people like that?
Um, I know people, and this is a big thing when you write a story or write a series, and this is the big thing is that some people just want to write a book to say I publish it,
Yeah.
and that's a vanity, what was called a vanity piece. It's just like I wrote a book, let me put it out there, da da da, and I've met people like that where they just want to see, hey, I accomplished this, I published a book. I am personally not going into this for that reason. I'm looking because I have three other stories that are waiting to come out that have been all my ideas for my books have been with me for 25 years. And uh, I decided, one day, and this story was the one that kept running through me. And yeah, and so I wrote it, and I have so much more to write. But people who don't care, I had a friend who made a new age book, and I illustrated it for her, and she didn't care if she sold it, because people can upload. Amazon doesn't take, Amazon publishing comes to you. You don't go to them. However, you can upload a manuscript to Amazon, no problem. But if it's not professionally done, people will know that. And I know another person who wants to get a book out. And I said, she doesn't even have a computer. And I said, you can't, you got to have a computer, you got to have the manuscript. And so, yeah, there are people that I know just, whatever. And I was at a book fair with a gentleman, and he used what the one major company that is rips off. They do the hard sell. Like I had a guy calling me every day, and I said, "Stop calling me. I'm not going to do this." And this poor guy went through them, and he said, "My book is just sitting there." And I said, that company is like the worst rated publishing entity, right? So, yeah, there are people who, don't think things through. And for me, it's like I've been thinking about this for a really long time. And and I tell the story like this. I have other books that have been in my head, but this one, which I'm very close to from the standpoint that, and we'll get into this later, that the lead character is a lot of me. So it's become my baby. I live when I write, I'm living through that character. And so it's very personal to me. There are things in the book that are me that actually happened to me. So this one was special. And I kept saying, I'm going to write it. I'm going to write it. And this is no joke. I was cleaning my house, and the story started running through me really fast. And it was in black and white for years. And then all of a sudden, it started to become color, and characters had names. And I went into the shower, and I turned it on, and the whole book went right through me. And I said, "Oh, I have to find my computer. I have to find my laptop." And I started writing, and I haven't stopped because the creative nature, as you know, you're a creative person. You can put your creativity down for a while, or it will pop up in other things. Um, did I think I should have sang? Yes, but I didn't do it because I was young and didn't have the confidence. Did I think I could act? Yes, but my parents are like, we're not sending you to school for that. So you have to adjust your life to, okay, so I'm going into the corporate world. And that creativity is still there, and it shows up in other things. Like I can plan a great party. I can, so my creativity came out that way. And, about a year and a half ago, I said, no, I'm going to write this story. I can write this. So you can only put the creativity, if you're that person, down for so long.
Until it just starts to come at
Right.
you. And
Yeah.
I love what you said, that you've had a lot of these stories in your mind since you were 25. You still had it in your mind eventually, because I know of people when they're kids, they have these stories and that one day I'm going to get this published, and then they don't end up ever touching that again. But you kept that. I think that's really, really cool. I really, really admire that. What was that like, seeing that finally come to life, really? All the ideas that you had for such a long time now finally being put onto the page.
It was great. I will say, when I started thinking about this particular story, it was a little bit darker. It was a little bit heavier. And as time went on, the heaviness started going away. And I said, nobody wants to read this heavy. So it became more of a romance story along with rock and roll, and they can mesh. And I don't hold back on the pitfalls of what it's like to be in a band and do the touring and all that. That's in there. So it's gritty, but I didn't make it as heavy. And I think that's the way it was supposed to be, because when it came through me, it was like, yep, this is it. This is, and it's a very weird feeling that you've had this story and it's kind of this black and white movie in your head, and to have the names of the characters, like where they're living, and how this was. So as I was writing the story, it was just like flowing. It was just, there was never a stop. There was never, okay, so this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And it just was like a domino effect of everything coming together. And honestly, I thought it was one book. And when I gave it to my editor, she said, this is two books. So I said, okay, where are we gonna put the cliffhanger? So we found a place, and then she started editing the second book. And after her first read through, she said to me, I think you should write book three. And I said, okay. Like, she said, pick it up from this point. And it was never like, I didn't intend to do that. But once she said it, I said, oh, okay. And I continued the story. So my intention was not to do that. But once she put that in my ear, I was like, okay, book three, book four. Now it's book five, book six. And I don't know, I'm gonna run long with the last two books, because I know exactly how the story is gonna go. And that's the beauty of it, is that I know how everything is going to be laid out. It's just a need to, get it out there.
Exactly. It's like you've already laid the foundation. Now it's time to finish everything else. Um, but it's always such an interesting process. Like you're doing 6 books to the series. What's it like in terms of, like you said, you already have it all mapped out where it's going to go, but then what's it like when you're changing it halfway through, or like, if at all, like if you change it halfway through and then you're like, okay, crap, how is it going to affect that near the end when so and so does this? Like, how do you kind of deal with all these changes that will come to your mind, but then you also have to look at the domino effect of, okay, how is this going to affect this? Should I keep that? Should I not keep that? Like, it just becomes this
Yes.
big battle within yourself, because one change can change the whole story. So it's
Oh,
always a matter of, how do I make this or like, how do I tell the story without knocking down all the dominoes. Like, how do you kind of balance that?
Well, that's the good because I was writing and I knew book three and book four had already been done. And book five is very long, and I probably will have to move some of it. I knew where I wanted book five to end. Um, but when they see the word count, because they're very, word count is very important when you're writing. Certain types of books, like romance books, are usually not longer than 98,000. I've got double that. So when that goes back to the self-editing, right? So now I know exactly what's happening in books five and six. So I go back to editing book three and I said, okay, I need to take this out because I know that in the next two books, this is going to happen. So I take it out. And that's the luxury of it that I will not change the character structure because as we go on through the series, the other characters become important and they start to have their own storylines. So I can't really change that because then I change the dynamic of that character. And so I won't do that. I am going to make a major it's going to be a major thing and I wasn't going to do it and I talked to my marketing person and she said, "Why don't you do this?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, yeah. That will create chaos." So I had to go back into book four and add the reason why chaos is going to happen. So yeah, it's you do go back and you add and you take out and but I'm not changing the basic character structure of the relationships because the relationships with all the characters have their own arcs to them. And if I change anything in it, it changes the whole. I'm not going to do that.
Exact and as difficult as it is sometimes, ultimately at the end of the day, you kind of got to look at the bigger picture, I guess. Like it's a really interesting process, the whole creative process of things, because as I said, it's like a domino effect. One thing changes, everything else changes. But it's good to kind of find that balance in there of what do we change and what not to change. I wanted to ask you too. So you have been involved in the rock and roll game, or the in the New York scene for how many years now? Have you been involved with that,
Well, I'm not involved anymore
or not anymore?
because at a certain time the um the rock and roll club scene and it was very big in New York. And there was one guy who had all the bars. Like, there were like probably 10 bars in Long Island and then in Westchester, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And you sign with this guy's agency and then you played at all these different clubs. And sometimes it was like every Wednesday night, this band would be there, every Thursday night. So for me, I got into this, but I started dating a guy who he was older, but he was the roadie for the biggest band on the circuit. And back then, the radio stations, which New York used to have a lot of rock stations, now they have like virtually none. Um, and so the radio stations would promote saying, "Hey, so and so is going to be at, this club, Friday, Saturday, Sunday." And either you were attached to the club or you were attached to the band. So some people would just be like, "Okay, I'm going to go this one club every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I don't care who plays." But for the most part, people would go to follow a band that they like. So I started dating this guy, and he is actually in my book. He said I can use his name. So I put in that whole thing about like the fact that we dated and we just decided it's better to be good friends. And actually, I saw him last year for a big birthday. I drove to Charlotte, North Carolina to go wish him a happy birthday. So we're still in touch. Um, but because he's with the hottest band on the circuit, I got to know those guys. And two of them were I was very close with. And they actually, when I moved from Hawaii back to New York, they knew my daughters. So it was kind of cool for them to meet my daughters. And so then you meet other bands because there were clubs. Sometimes they would have two bands playing in one location. So then I'm friends with, like the biggest band there. And I was at a club and I met somebody who was with another band, started dating him. It was a serious kind of relationship. And so you meet all the other bands and you know the girlfriends of the bands. And that became my life where it was, I think there was only 2 days off and it was like weird days in the week. But um, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you knew you were going someplace. And then it was, are you playing on a Thursday? Are you playing on a Monday? So I was there all the time. I mean, I was getting home at 4 a.m., waking up, had to go to school, by 8. And it was like, oh gosh, yeah. But yeah, it was. And then I had a friend, and we knew this guy who was the promotional manager for a record company. So we would get to go backstage to whatever, and he did promote some pretty high level bands. And he would say, "Hey, come, meet me, and we'll hang out backstage." So you get involved in that and you meet people and then they open doors to you that you wouldn't normally have been open to, but it's there for your taking, and so you take it, especially when you're well, I started going to the clubs at like 16, so I was underage. And yeah, it's true.
I think that's when everyone starts going to clubs, though, when
I
they're all under.
know. Yeah, I know. And here was the best part is that because I was going to see, my friends, or at the time my boyfriend, nobody checked my ID. It was like my name was left at the door and it was just go in. So yeah, nobody checked anything because I was with the band. So I was good. I was good. And then you get to know the bouncers. So say you went to another club just to see somebody else, the bouncers knew you and they just were like, "Yeah, no, go ahead. It's fine." Because there were there was a cover fee and all that stuff. But and I lived that life for a while, for I would say about 6 years. And then once I graduated school, it was I got a BA in business administration because, my mother tapped down all my creativeness, like let me sing. And at one time I had two female friends and we were gonna start a band together and that fizzled out. But I went to school, I did some people say musician friends would be like you sold out. You sold out because you took the straight road. But we all have to earn money. And, lucky for me, I was, the relationship ended with the boyfriend and I moved back to my parents' house. And, I had to have a plan. And I was very lucky. My first job was a great job. And when I tell people this, they wince, but I worked for one of the big eight accounting firms back in the day where everybody walked around with cigarettes hanging out of their mouth and you could have a liquid lunch and nobody cared. It was not Mad Men because it was not the 50s or 60s, but it was a different form of it. And I had a great mentor and I was her assistant and I had a great job. And I was still, dating this guy, that guy. And then you start to realize, oh, there's a lot of cool guys in the accounting firm. They're not all, nerdy guys. And so I started to wane away from it, but I was always the rocker girl. That never left me. And when I had my daughters, they from an early age, I would put in CDs. It was like, okay, Stones, Beatles, Van Halen, and they were raised on that music, um, and I never stopped loving it. And my story reflects some of that. Um, I should say my series. And music just has always been important. And I feel like I was very lucky to be a part of history. And I'm sure there were other places that this was happening, but in New York, it was very big. And I feel fortunate that I lived through that, and it was like a golden age. And I didn't live through this, but well, I lived through it, but I wasn't there. Is the grunge movement in Seattle is probably very close to the way the New York club scene was. Um, and we know that like so many bands came out of Seattle during that time. So it's like a new version of music starts to pop up, and it can pop up anywhere. And then that becomes the magnet for everybody to go to.
This episode of the Corcoran Entertainment Show is brought to you by audiobooks. This website allows customers to choose from over 125,000 of the best sellers and hottest titles of all genres. Audiobooks can be downloaded directly to one of the free iPhone, iPad, or Android apps, or streamed instantly from almost any internet-enabled device to listen to. Whether you're driving, doing chores, or going for walks, audiobooks is there for you anytime, anywhere. Not sure if audiobooks are your thing? No worries. Audiobooks.com offers a 30-day free trial. That means you can explore thousands of titles at no cost to you. If you find that audiobooks aren't quite your style, you can cancel anytime, no strings attached. With such a low-risk opportunity, why not give it a go? Sign up for a free 30-day trial today using the link in our episode description to let audiobooks.com know that we sent you. There's always of each genre, there's always the one star or band. From like country, it's Morgan Wallen or it's Luke Combs. Nowadays, I mean, back then it was somebody else. But
Yeah,
I'm trying to think, who is the big rock and roll band nowadays that not like AC/DC or anything like that, but like what's one that like
I can think of some.
currently like ongoing bands that are still
Okay.
yeah, I can't
There
even.
are some, and I will say this. I have in every book I have a playlist because there's certain songs that um, mean something to the story. And there are certain songs that the female character, her thing when they go out on stage is she will open up with a cover. Um, and that was really hard. I had to research like when did this song come out, and you don't think about things like that. But I would say the bands, and it's the bands that I listen to today. Uh, that I have a playlist on Spotify, and yeah, the Doors and Zeppelin and the Who, all Pink Floyd, they're all on there. But there's a reason why those songs are on there. But the music I listen to now is Theory of a Dead Man, Seether, Shinedown. I'm a huge Nickelback fan. Would love to get Chad to help me write some of my songs because he collabs. So come collab with me. Um, and then there are some of the bands, and I would say from the 2000s, like Three Doors Down, Three Days Grace. All of those bands are starting to be resurgent.
Yep.
And that's okay because I think their music is still relevant. Um, but then there is, and I can't listen to it. Then there's the like raunchy metal where they're like, I can't
Blech.
listen. Yeah, I
Like
can't
that.
listen to that. Although I will say that I'm a big Corn fan, and I've seen them like 5 times, and it was the first concert I took my daughters to at Madison Square Garden when we came back to New York. And my daughter was so into Jonathan Davis. And I said, okay, we'll buy tickets. And I took my 3 daughters to see Korn and Puddle of Mud. And that was their first concert. And it was just like, okay, no big deal. That's who they wanted to see. So, yeah. For me, right, because when I was living in New York at 14, we had our bands that we liked. And I think I saw every iteration of David Bowie, like I saw Bowie many times. And we would go to Ticketmaster, get our tickets, and take the bus that led us to the subway and go to the garden all the time. It was like, okay, this is the Stones played at the garden, the Who played at the garden, and so right, for someone like you, I understand it. And for me, it's like, well, I went to the circus in Madison Square Garden and I saw the Rangers play there, because that the garden's used for so many things. So, but yeah, I mean, playing in Madison Square Garden is a big deal because it's pretty big and it's the iconic place where you would want to play in New York. There are smaller venues now that are much nicer. I mean, and the Beacon Theater is still there, and there was a place called the Academy of Music, and I saw so many great bands there. I saw Traffic there. I saw Genesis there a couple of times with Peter Gabriel. So that made you know, very theatrical. I probably, what band I haven't seen, and I know that they've been on a long tour is Metallica.
Oh,
And
yes.
I would, that's my thing. I would love to go see Metallica.
Enter Sandman. Like that's. I always told someone, I said, if I was a wrestler, that I would want Enter Sandman to be my entrance song.
I saw when the college football was on, and I don't remember, well, it was one of the top rated colleges. And the song that they ran out on the field, I don't know if it was Tennessee or, it was one of the SEC schools. And I'm watching it, and, they have the smoke and it's building. And all of a sudden, I hear Enter Sandman. And, as the intro goes, right? And they're getting all pumped. And then when you hear da, they ran out on the field, and I said, damn, that was such a good choice that they picked Enter Sandman, and I was proud of them, um, because some people think Metallica is too much, but they listen. They're iconic. I'd love to see them in concert, and I know I'm not sure because I do keep track because of my music stuff. And I do put out a newsletter where tell people, hey, this festival is happening. These are the people who are playing. And so I really try to keep track of who's playing when and what venue, and is it a festival or is it just a medium-sized venues? And I see maybe not a Metallica, but I see most of the bands that are touring now are picking a medium-sized venue. And it makes sense because selling out the Garden is a big deal. If you're the Rolling Stones, and I've seen them twice in their prime and not so much in their prime, but people they'll still sell out, right? They'll still sell out a stadium.
It's the Rolling
Um,
Stones, like they'll never not be
yeah.
popular.
I mean, it's just, I don't know how Keith Richards is still alive. I mean, and they must, I don't know, do they prop him up? But, uh, but a lot of these bands that are, Shine Down and nothing again, I love their music and Nickelback and all these bands, they choose medium-sized venues because they can sell them out.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, is that the ticket prices are extremely high.
Well, even like
And
Taylor Swift tickets, like just I see how much people are spending on a Taylor Swift concert, and I'm just like in shock. I'm like, okay, Taylor Swift's a good singer. I like listening to her music. Would
I
I
do too.
spend that much money to go see her in concert? Nah, I'll just watch it at home or something, or I'll just listen to her on the radio. I'm like, I am not spending that amount of money to watch her live. And I mean, not to diss anybody who, or the Swifties, as they say, not to diss anybody who does. That's just not my cup of tea. I wouldn't, no matter who it is, not just Taylor Swift. I don't know if I'd spend that much money on a band or a singer.
Yeah.
And I'm probably in the minority of that because there are lots of people who clearly do, but that's just not for me. Are you like that too?
I feel listen, the tickets for Taylor Swift, if we take her, she she has a younger audience. So who's buying those tickets? It's mom and dad who are
Yeah.
buying those tickets. So she's got a different kind of audience, where mom and dad are paying for those tickets, or maybe it's I can't even say a millennial, but somebody is like going to save their money to buy that Taylor Swift ticket. Um, as far as what I've been watching, and I will say that my girlfriend and I are getting VIP tickets for a concert, and we're spending like $400, and it's because we want to do that, and there's a chance, maybe we meet the people that are playing at this particular festival. Would I ordinarily spend that much? Absolutely not. Um, the last concert that I went to in New York was at Jones Beach, which is a great venue. It's not big, it's outside. And it was, again, one of my daughters who said, "Oh my God, Sting and Peter Gabriel are playing in Jones Beach. We got to get tickets." And I said, "All right, let's look at the tickets." So, we looked at the prices, and I was willing to spend like $125 per person. And like that would be my max normally. But now $125 gets you at the you're all the way up on the top. It's But that's where the bands are making their money. That's why you see the resurgence of so many of these bands like Creed and, like I said, Three Doors Down, 3 Days Grace. I just had a bunch of them in my head because I just did my newsletter. Um, so bands from the 2000s that we haven't heard from are touring because that's how these guys make their money, is touring. They don't make their money. I mean, yeah, sure, they'll make money off their music, but because everything is Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, it's the touring that they make their money from. And I'm not sure if it's, the split between the venue and the band, but ticket prices are really high.
Oh,
And
unbelievably high.
I don't understand. I mean, I guess somebody sits there and says, you know what? So and so is going to be in our town or an hour away or whatever it is. And I'm only going to see one show this year. And I'm going to save my money to see that show. And maybe they spend 250 bucks on not the best ticket, but good enough where they feel like they're engaged.
And that they're there. It's not like they're it's, I can't afford it. I'm just not going to go. At least they were there. I think that's it might
Yeah.
sound cliche, but it's true. The fact that you were willing to be there in the same building as them, that's better than not going at all.
Yeah, but and here's the thing, sometimes especially during touring when, you stop, you sing, you party, sometimes their voices aren't good. Sometimes
You
sometimes
can't
it's like
compare to the previously recorded songs. It's hard to kind of match that sometimes. Only very few bands and singers could do that.
I will tell you a band that I saw at when they were doing Lollapalooza still. And it was a great lineup. It was like Jane's Addiction, Incubus, gosh, why can't I can't remember the other, it wasn't Linkin Park. Um anyway, there was like four great bands. Oh, Queens of the Stone Age was
Oh
one.
yes, Queens of the Stone Age.
Queens of the Stone Age. And so Incubus came on and like them. They're another band that's coming back on tour, by the way, is Incubus.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So, if you look, you can see that they're playing someplace. So they took the stage and they started playing. And I will tell you that they sounded just like the record, but in a live form. They were unbelievable in concert. They really sounded just like the record, and it was like jaw dropping, like, wow,
And see,
okay,
that's rare. That's very rare.
yes, it is. And so I enjoyed that. Um, who else did? Oh, and well, Corn is Corn, and so they're great live because everybody gets into, the head bobbing and all that kind of stuff. Um, I did see Stained at a place called the Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan, and Aaron Lewis's voice was very, good, very close, but he sings a different type of way. So many bands that I could say. Genesis was great, when Gabriel was doing it. Um, but then I also have seen The Bad. And when I went to see Traffic, the saxophone player was so bad that Stevie Winwood stopped and kicked him off the stage and said, "Get out of here." And we were like, okay, all right. Um, and I saw Van Halen after the split with Sammy Hagar, and they had that other guy singing, and he was so bad that Eddie Van Halen, tossed him off the stage. And I forgot who was singing, but I've seen the bad. And the other bad thing I saw, it was just in my head, and I forgot what it was. Damn. There was another really bad thing, and you're like, okay, well, stuff happens.
No, exactly. Especially when you're touring and you're doing it so much and you're going on little sleep, like that stuff can happen. Whether that's an excuse or not, that's up for debate. People could say that, oh, that's no excuse. They have a job to do, but I'd say yes, but there's an explanation for it. I mean, sometimes there might not be. Sometimes it's just we just didn't feel like giving it our all tonight, or we were just half-assing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think and this is like this is what I saw on a smaller scale, right? But Look, and I know this just from my singing that, because I do like a 90-minute workout every day. And some days you have it, some days you don't. And um, you have to learn to open up your voice. So these guys are doing it every couple of days and they're supposed to do a show. And if they party, are they drinking or what are they doing? That adds to it. Um, and really, their job, and I know, and I'm not disrespecting any of the bands that are performing, but a gig's a gig. You're in Cleveland, and then you're in Pittsburgh, and they run together.
Yeah.
And you can sit there and say, hey, fans, thank you. You're great. We love you. But when they get off the stage, it's like, okay, what's the next thing we have? Where are we going next? And it's just kind of like their job.
Yeah.
And, they can say they love their fans, but at the end of the day, they want to get the hell out.
No, exactly.
They
Like
want to get the
that's
hell
yeah.
out. Um, so people can have dreamy eyes and be like, oh my God. But no, like when they get off the stage after their encore, they are, let me go, either my tour bus or whatever the hell they're doing. And it's like, ugh, done. We're done with that. Okay. When's the next one? And it is like that. I mean, it was like that in the club circuit where the guys would be like, okay, did that, and then the adoring fans or groupies, that is a big deal. And and there are guy groupies too, from the standpoint of if there's like a fledgling guitar player and they'll go up to the guy and be like, hey man, I really like your guitar playing. And so there's that too. It's not only the females, it's the guys too who like, I really like your drum set, or what do and I was in the club scene. It's even worse when you're, the big time band, and there's those people there, and then sometimes they have to do the meet and greets, right? Like a radio station will be like, hey, win two tickets, and then you get to go backstage and meet the band, and they don't want to do that. I mean,
Yeah, they
they,
just want to finish the concert and go home, basically.
right, but if you're putting it out there, if somebody's put it out there, you need to do that. Whether you like it or not, you have to do it.
This episode of the Corcoran Entertainment Show is brought to you by Taylor Brands. Are you ready to take your brand to the next level? Whether you're launching a new business, scaling your side hustle, or just want to give your existing brand a glow up, then I highly recommend you check out Taylor Brands. Taylor Brands is an all-in-one branding platform that empowers entrepreneurs and creatives like you to express your unique identity online. Their user-friendly platform helps you design logos, business cards, social media posts, and all the promotional materials that you need to get your brand noticed. And it doesn't stop there. With Taylor Brands, you'll also get access to powerful tools to manage your social media presence and create high-quality marketing content, all tailored specifically for your brand. Join the thousands of satisfied entrepreneurs who have transformed their business identities with Taylor Brands. Sign up today and use the link in our episode description to let Taylor Brands know that we sent you. Yeah, when you're a public figure like that and people have come from all over the world, different parts of the globe to come see you, that's just part of it. That's not like something where you're like, I didn't sign up for this. You're a public figure, you're doing a concert, and you have fans who want to see you. That's just part of the deal.
And
You know
and
what I
they
mean? That's what
either
it is.
right, they either paid for it or they won it. And I do go into that in my books where the female character, the lead character, she hates the meet and greets. She hates them. And she always gets angry at their manager, like, why did you hook us into this? We don't want to do this. And it's like, no, it's part of the deal. You have to do it. And she tries to buck the system all the time, like, no, it's my band. And, so she has certain rules that she has. And it's from you know, my experience is that, nobody wants to do the meet and greet. That's where the groupies come in. That's where, and the fawning fans and I'm on a few not only author pages on X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook. I'm also on a few band pages, right? So I know what they're doing, and I look at some of the things that these fangirls write on there, and I'm like, oh God, you're embarrassing yourselves. Like, like heart, I love you, and all that kind of stuff, which I guess maybe I'm a little jaded because I have met um those type of people, and especially now I feel that I'm on your level. Yeah, I'm an author. Um I could say I'm a lyricist because I've wrote 16 songs. I just need somebody, a band or somebody to, they don't have to do all 16, but I'd be happy with a few. Um, so that would be great. It would be even better if I could sing part, whether it's with somebody or whatever. So yeah, those things are all laid out. And the music industry is so different. So, I started in the mid 70s. So dealing with that was dealing with record companies. Did the record company like you? How many albums do you have to put out for the record company? Because they controlled you, right? They said, okay, your deal, 5 albums, blah blah blah, and you had to do that. Then you recorded, you went on tour, you came back and did, and it's like rinse, spin, that kind of thing.
Do it all again.
Do it all again. And, I always point to this that remember when Prince was in his record contract and he wrote slave on his face because he felt that he was indebted, which he was to the record company that told him, well, we need 2 more albums from you. You owe us 2 more albums. And that's the way it was. And then it was like that for a while. And then this unbelievable thing came into our lives, which was called MTV. And MTV would play, and it changed, like Dire Straits, Money for Nothing, and you can see the songs, and like White Snake with the Tawny Katane like all over the car and all that. Those guys maybe wouldn't have made it, but they had a great video and it was played every hour. So bands like that made it because of MTV.
Yep. Without them, they wouldn't be as popular as they are, or their relevancy wouldn't be as strong as it is, really.
Yeah, so MTV changed a lot. So there are a lot of bands that, once one song was in their rotation, then you had another song, boom, they would put you in rotation. So the MTV factor was big. And I remember my daughters always wanted to go down because I was like 30 minutes from Midtown and they wanted to go to TRL. Remember, TRL was like there and everybody would be outside. "Ah." Um, so that changed the music industry because then it's like, we have to make a video. If you wanted to get your song, you had to make a video. And then you had like people like Michael Jackson who had full on, production companies doing his videos. And then you had like a band that just had maybe them singing in a field, but it didn't matter as long as the song was good. They didn't really care about that stuff. Um, and then I think we kind of went to a lull, and it was probably around the time that grunge came in. And then NTV, remember they used to do the unplugged. And I actually some of like I think of Nirvana and some of the Nirvana stuff that's unplugged. I think is better than the album because it was different. So then you go through that, and then we had Napster, and all. Then the streaming start to come, and like I go through all those changes, and it does change. And now where we're at is most bands have their own recording studios somewhere in their house, in their basement, in a separate building, and on their estate, and they record, and it doesn't take much. You know, I watched The Real Housewives, and one of the women wanted to have a recording studio, and boom, he built it downstairs. It doesn't take much for you to
Just
have a
get the
recording.
equipment and get, you
Yeah.
can literally do it like the way we're doing it now. We just got a microphone in our bedroom, really. I mean, obviously there's way more to it than that, especially when it comes to
Hmm.
music. For just podcasting, it's just a mic. But for music, yeah, like we're in a day and age now where you can literally record music anywhere, however you want, which is really cool.
Right. So the record companies, I mean, gosh, I don't I I think about some of them, and it's like, are they still in existence? Because everybody does their stuff from home, and then when they do it from home, they have their own label, and they're putting out the content the way they want to put it out. And I think it's a great thing. Don't get me wrong, I really do. I think it's back to that thing where you own everything, right? So you
Yeah.
own it. Um, you don't have to share anything. It's all you guys. And the other thing that I think people, and I read a great autobiography, and it was about Peter Townsend. And, we thought the Who was big. The Who is, they weren't making a lot of money back in the day. Um, record companies. And then Pete Townsend was writing most of the music. So he was getting money because he owned the royalties of the songs. And, he said to the other people, like to Daltrey and whatever, and say, hey, you're welcome to write a song, anytime you want. And so back then, it was if you wrote the song, you made money. I mean, look at Lennon and McCartney. They were I always say the Beatles are on their own level that nobody can touch them. That started everything. It started the ball rolling.
Well, it's almost like you're gonna start up a grocery store and say this is gonna be as big as Walmart. That's kind of a stretch. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
same kind of deal. If you're gonna try and match the Beatles, who literally started
everything.
everything, really. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And gosh, Lennon McCartney wrote so many great songs that you can't really put they're in a different stratosphere. And but yeah, it's if you write the song, and I don't know what it is now, like, I think with the bands today, um, I think that I think I was reading something about Shinedown, and I know Brett Smith writes a lot of, at least he writes the lyrics, but then the collab part comes in of, what's the drummer bringing in, what's the guitarist bringing in. So, you might write the song, but it's the band totally collaborating, like how are we going to lay that song out, like, is it going to be, really hard, rough, is it going to be a softer kind of, so I think that they all work together so everybody equally shares the pie.
Yes, like have your cake and eat it too, in a
Yeah,
way. Yeah,
yeah,
no, absolutely, absolutely. And it's also a very competitive industry as well too. Um, I always say this because there are so many people out there who want to get their foot in the door, but sometimes it's very, very hard. It's always, do you see it as a matter of it's knowing the right people, or it's just a matter of you just got to keep doing your best and keep pumping it out? Like, how do you see it as like the key way to success? Like, how do you kind of see it?
Well, I think it's a little both. And I will say, if I go back to like my band days, the guys that I told you were the top notch in that circuit, they were exceptional musicians. The keyboard player was a very good friend of mine, and he's no longer here. And the guitar player played with Jimmy Page. So, I mean, he was phenomenal. The keyboard player, all he had to do was hear a song once, boom, he had it. Um, so yeah, talent. But you know what? They never took it to the next level because they didn't have the original music. So I think it's persistence, and it's kind of what I'm up against with my books, right? I'm being very persistent. I'm putting it out there. I'm pushing it out there. Um, and it is a little who you know. Like for me, I just need one or two well-known people or, some influencer to say, yeah, her books are good. You should be reading it. Because books are very, at least with music, you can hear it and you can say, I like it or I don't like it. When you write a book, it's totally subjective. And it's like, do I find her story that compelling that I want to read it? So I believe it's talent. And I most definitely think I have a talent for writing because sometimes I read over my work when I'm reading it over and I'm like, oh my God, this is good. And I'll cry in the right places and
But see,
it'll
that's
be,
good. You're crying at your own work. Like
I'm crying at my own work.
that's when you
Yes.
know right there that you've hit the
I
jackpot.
know. I do. I cry at my own work and I'll be sitting here and I'm like, um, and I know it's coming, but it still makes me upset. So you have the talent, and I think, and I know this, you need to have somebody to kind of push you into the circus,
A
whatever is,
coach.
and just say, yeah, she's the next thing. She's the next thing. And that's what I'm working on. And one of the things that, my publishing consultant, I've booked like 30 podcasts over the next 2 months. And I enjoy doing them though. I do. I really do. Um, and they told me when I did a bunch last year, they're like, authors don't like to be out there like you do. Like you want the celebrity, to you want to be out front with your books. Most authors want to hide.
Yeah,
And I said, well, why would you want to hide? Because the book and you are the brand, right? And I think that they're very much connected. So, somebody might not like the way I look, might not like this, might not like that. They're not going to read my book. Okay, I can live with that. But, it's just, I think it's good. I want you to see me. I want you to hear from me. Um, I always say, the lead female character is me to a certain point. It's fiction, and some of the things that she goes on in life or what happens to her did not happen to me. So that's why it's fiction. But her mannerisms, some of the way she grew up are me. And I sprinkle that throughout the book. And I always say to people, if you read my books, and if you're in a book club for ladies, I'll do a Zoom with you and you can I'll ask me questions and I'll answer them because if somebody takes the time to read my books, then I can take the time to say,
And
okay,
be there for them, you know?
yeah, no, so yes, I want to do that. And I did a podcast. I was going to Austin for the Texas Book Festival, and I had to stop at a Starbucks and do this podcast on my phone. And I'm the type of person, I'll stay on as long as you want me to. And I was talking to her for 90 minutes, and she asked me a specific part of book one. She said, I want to know if you really did that. Is that real or is that fiction? And I started laughing and I said, really, that's the part you want to ask me about? And she said, yeah, yeah, I really do. And I said, yes, I actually did that. And she said, I'm like, I can't believe you did that. And I said, yeah, yeah, no. I mean, that's the way it was back then. And I don't want to give it away because maybe, somebody will ask me the same question. I don't want to give away that. But yeah, I'm very much I love doing podcasts. I'll do Zoom with book clubs. So this is the hardest part of the whole thing. I mean, I can talk about music all day long. I can talk about self-publishing, but promoting a book is really because the romance genre is so big. And then there are subcultures in the romance. There's that romantasy, which I don't get, but I know a lot of people are into it. It's like fairies and vampires, and they get together. I don't know how that happens. And then there's the rom-coms, and I'm not a rom-com girl. My books are sexually explicit to the point. I'm not erotica, and that's another subculture of the romance, but my books are, they call them spicy, smutty. I don't hold back, but I do it in the way that a woman wants to read it. Because, I used to have a book club at my house all the time, and the ladies want to have a little bit of that sexy, sexy. And it's the way you write it that makes them want to read it. And so I know what it is that they want to read. And I know what it is, like whether it's fantasizing or whatever it is, I don't make it dirty. I make it as two people who love each other. So it takes away a lot of the harsh words and that some people would use. I don't use them. But it's definitely, I was at a book festival and a woman said to me, would this book be good for my junior high school granddaughter? I said, absolutely not. No. Unless you want to give her an education in some things, then yeah, no, don't buy my book. And yeah, it's not for anybody who's under 18. It's because that's it's part of the romance. It's also part of the rock and roll scene. You know, the
Combining those worlds, the rock and roll and the romance. Yeah.
yeah, and so you got to mesh them up, and in a good story, like sometimes I bounce things off of my mother because she moved to where I am and she doesn't drive. So I'm always, if she has a doctor's appointment and we go to the grocery store and we'll be driving in, I'll say, oh, so this is what I'm going to do in book six, blah, 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 blah. And she'll say, oh, why are you doing that? Don't do that. And I said, no. I said, in a series or in any book, you can have the good things, right? And the lovey-dovey, the good things, but you have to take a nosedive, right? Because nobody wants to read happiness for 380 pages. You got to put antagonists, and I do have antagonists in the book, or books, I should say. And you got to mix it up with the bad because, first of all, that's life. We all live through that. So I think I write the way we all live.
Realism. Like you just
Yeah,
write very realistically, and you write how people talk and people act, you know?
yeah, and it's interesting that you say talk because the female character is from, now I'm going to sound like a real New Yorker here. She's from Long Island, and New Yorkers say Long Island. We don't say Long Island. We kind of mesh the two together. And so she's from an Italian family. Obviously, I can speak to that. And her father, they're very wealthy, and they have an estate. And her father is in construction, but her father also has a different kind of business, as we say. He's connected. He's connected.
He knows all the ins and outs kind of thing.
Well, no, he's connected to illegal things that Italian families have.
Oh, yes, that one.
Yeah. We never, growing up, we will never say the M word because we're like that doesn't exist. That's the way I was raised. That and my father was a wise guy, and not we didn't live in an estate in Manhasset, Long Island. But so when her parents are included, especially her father speaks the way, my father spoke. And growing up in an Italian family, and I was the only girl, I was the oldest, and I had three brothers. We had foul mouths, and that's the way we talked to each other. So I captured that. And so when it's any time with her family, I'm going to talk the way New Yorkers, Italian families talk when they're in their house. And it's, blank and blank, 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 blank. And so, yes, I bring that in because that is realistic. And maybe if you haven't lived it, you don't know it. But what I'm writing is the way it really is.
Yeah, and whether people want to because I know that a lot of people can always take the more realistic story and say I don't like it because this happened and that happened and it was too sad, but that's realistic. You want something that's going to be something that you can relate to. That's the best part about stories and movies and TV stuff that's grounded in realism. And I think the more realistic it is, the better the story is. And so that's why I more so prefer stories that are grounded in reality. But then, of course, there are lots of stories that I watch or read that are not in reality, but they still manage to tug at the heartstrings, which that's right there, too. That's also an incredible achievement to be able to do that. There's so many different ways to writing. So just think taking it all in and everything that we've talked about today. Um, I'm just blown away by everything that you've done and the amount of wisdom that you've bestowed upon me in terms of writing and in terms of publishing and in terms of just everything in terms of art. I mean art in general. I mean, uh, there's a lot of I always say too, and I agree with what you said, how it's always a mixture of in finding success, it's a mixture of knowing the right people and also just working hard. And you perfectly described that. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such an honor. We could talk on and on
I
just
know.
about
I will
everything
come
you've done.
back. I
Yes.
will
Oh my
come back.
God. Let's do part two. Let's schedule this right now.
Okay, we'll do it. I mean, like I said, I love doing podcasts. And yeah, a couple of people said, when book three comes out, call me. And I'm like, okay, but we could talk about, like there's a lot of festivals going on, and we could talk about, who screwed up in what festival or something like that, because I see the feeds that come through. And yeah, the one thing, like you said, it's you have to know somebody, and I'm waiting for my somebody to pop up. And I will say this: not only do I want my songs to, I'd rather work with a known band than just some musician. The other thing, and I talked to my editor about this, and she said, you make this a series, somebody's going to want to make it like a Netflix limited series. And I said, well, I said, if that happens, you and I are going to write the screenplay because I'm not giving away my story.
Yep.
And yeah, so, there's so many avenues I could take this, and it's only been a year and a few months. So I think I'm doing okay because it takes a while to get the steam rolling.
Art takes a while, but the process, the things you learn, the things that it accomplishes, make it all worth it.
Yeah.
And you really, really have accomplished it all. So thank you so much, Beth,
Thank
for
you.
taking the time to come on. Do you have any final words or anything you like to say to our viewers in terms of where they can find you and stuff like that?
Yes. I'm on Amazon, obviously, and you can either search it by my name or Perfection Saga. Book one is called Playing Hard. Book two is called Playing High. And if you go into a bookstore and you go to the information desk, my book is not available in there because that's a whole nother thing to talk about. But if you go to the information desk, they will order it for you. Um, so yeah, Amazon, they're what everybody goes to, and it's an ebook. So if people have Kindle Unlimited, it's there. Ebook, paperback, and I said you're in Canada, aren't you?
Canada. Yep.
Yep. Um, no problem. With Canada, it's worldwide distribution, and I have a few sales from Canada because Canada plays a big role in my books. There's there's the male character's from Canada, but he's from Vancouver. So and I've spent a lot of time in Canada, to be honest with you. So I chose Vancouver.
Oh, okay. Oh, right on. I've never been to Vancouver. It's on my list. I got a bucket list of places that I want to go to,
Now, now
just all around the world.
where are you?
I am in New Brunswick, Miramichi, New
See,
Brunswick.
I would love that to me, okay, is like New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. Like, been to Montreal, I don't with the French, Toronto, okay, Toronto's something. I spent a lot of time in Alberta because my ex-husband had an office there. So I used to go to Calgary all the time, and Edmonton and Banff, took kids skiing, Lake Louise, you name it. I've been all over Alberta. And I went to Vancouver once to go to Whistler Mountain, and it's beautiful. So I said, I there's a thing in the story that has to do with visas. And so the guys had to be from Canada because I wasn't going to make them from Mexico.
Right.
That no. And I'm like, Vancouver. That they're going to be from Vancouver. So, yeah, and Vancouver plays a big role in the series. Just saying.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you for making it so close to home. Something to, we can all relate
I
to.
want to get
Yeah.
you guys in here, okay? I want to take you with me.
Yes, I am here. Anything you need, you say the word. Okay.
Okay, well, I will definitely we'll definitely hook up and I'll let you know when book 3 comes out and I'm happy to come back.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know where to find me. I know where to find you. Let's
Yep,
make it happen. So,
we will.
thank you so much, Beth, for coming on. Guys, be sure to check out the Perfection Saga. Like she said, anywhere you get your books, Amazon, Kindle, Barnes and Noble. Is that one that
Yeah,
you can
it
find it
just
on? Yeah.
yeah, you go to the information desk and ladies will love it.
Okay, that's perfect. Any of you ladies out there, this is the book for you. So,
Yes.
thank you so much, Beth, for coming on, guys. Thank you for
Thank you.
listening to the Corcoran Entertainment Show today on a Thursday of all days. We will see you on Tuesday. Have a great rest of your week, and until then, this is Frankie and Beth signing off. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Ranky.